Hey folks, Mr. Bause here. I'm about to share with you an example of what I call talking to the text. This is a way to annotate an article specifically for a science class or a scientific article. So again, this is called T4, which is talking to the text. Yep, the math checks out. Four, definitely four. So it's T4. And really, the main goal when you're reading a scientific article, I want you to think like a scientist. And scientists have what's called a healthy skepticism. Healthy skepticism means, hey, you have to really show a lot of evidence to make me, feel confident that your claim is accurate. And that's what I want you guys to do when you're reading an article. I want you to have a healthy skepticism, and I want you to question everything. Now, I don't mean sarcastically. Like, I don't want you to question like ridiculous things. Like, should I put my name here or things like that. I don't know. Just focus on the content of the article, and you're going to be okay. I'm going to show you some examples of this. I'm going to go through a little bit of this with you. So bear with me here. This is an article about how humans almost went extinct. First thing, when I'm looking at an article, you got to read the title, obviously. Right? Now, almost all the time in a scientific article, that one was dead. Almost always, scientific article, you can pretty much deduce the claim of the author through the title. Right? Now, it's not always the entire claim that the author is making, but you can get a pretty good idea, right? I'm pretty sure, folks, that the author is trying to convince us that humans, that's us, by the way, we almost went extinct about 70,000 years ago. Okay? So now, if that is his claim or her claim, if that's the claim, I want to have evidence, right? You have to have evidence, right, in science to support a claim. So I'm looking for evidence. That's one of the main things I'm reading for. Why does the author think this? Okay? So that's one of the things I want you constantly digging into these articles for. What's the claim, and what evidence does the author have? The next thing I do, obviously, if there's any subtitles or anything, I want to read that. If you notice here, this is Scientific American, April 25th, 2008. Now, Scientific American is a news magazine. It's a very well-respected news magazine. It's been around for a long time. I read it. I know it's really good stuff. But I do want to make note that Scientific American is a news magazine, right? So what that means is they're not doing the science. They're reporting on the science. Okay? So they themselves are not necessarily scientists. They're reporters. Okay? So when you're looking for evidence in an article, you want to look for things that are something along the lines of this. The American Journal for Human Genetics. Scientific journals are where scientists publish their studies. That is a source. Okay? The author clearly read this journal and read the study and is now reporting on his take or her take of that particular study. Okay? So I just want you to make a mental note of that. I think it's always important to remind myself of that. 2008? That's pretty old, man, right? That's, according to my basic math skills, that's like more than 10 years ago, right? I think. All right, so this is pretty old. I would imagine that there's more information somewhere out there, right? More studies that have been published since 2008. So this is maybe a little outdated, right? So my question on this one is this outdated? Question mark. By the way, I forgot to mention, I will be providing this lovely document here I say I want you to question everything. On the right side, this is just showing you some ways to annotate, some things that you can do. Underline, circle, question, exclamation points. These are great. Okay. On the left are depth of knowledge questions, right? Most of your questions are going to be up here, right? I want you to try to aim for 2 to 3 of these level questions per article when you're using this. Okay. So I'll give you some examples of that as we go. So this is the bookmark that I refer to in the directions right here. Okay, and I will be providing that for you again. So let's get started. Let's read this article. Okay, the number of early humans may have shrunk to as low as 2,000 before it began to rise again in the early Stone Age. Okay, early humans may have shrunk to as low as 2,000. Right? So for me, I'm going to circle this. I'm going to put an exclamation point here because that's an exclamation point, believe it or not. This is insane. 2,000? Folks, we have, 7.5 billion people on Earth today. 70,000 years ago, there were only 2,000 human beings, according to this study. Okay? That's pretty shocking. So that's why I'm putting an exclamation point there. Right? I'm also going to just highlight humans may have shrunk to as low as 2,000. All right? Before it began to rise again. So I have 2 questions here. What caused this? That's a good level 1 depth of knowledge question. What caused this? Right? And then I also want to know, it began to rise again. What caused this? How did that happen? Another level 1 question. Okay? Just where, when, what, how did this happen? These are level 1 questions. So, an extensive new genetic study suggested yesterday. All right, so this part right here, genetic study. Okay, this to me suggests some evidence the author is going to use to support his claim, right? So this, we don't know what it says yet. We just know that there was a study. All right, so is this where his evidence is coming from? It's likely that it was published in this journal here. Okay, so let's continue. It says this close brush with extinction for humans came around 70,000 years ago, right? My question, of course, is what happened 70,000 years ago? Right? I know from past knowledge, maybe past science classes, I know the dinosaurs almost went extinct or they did go extinct because of a space rock, right? Did something like this happen to humans? So did something happen 70,000 years ago? Now, folks, when you ask a question, right, a lot of times the answer is going to be at the bottom somewhere. When you find an answer to one of your questions, I want you to make note of that. I want you to circle it. I want you to highlight it and say, hey, here's the answer to my question. Okay? Oop, that's the bell for lunch. Anywho, that's the type of thing I want you to think about. So according to the report published in the American Journal of Human Genetics. So I'm just going to tell you right now, when a scientist does a study, when it has something to share with the scientific community, it publishes in scientific journals. And there's a whole bunch of scientific journals out there. This one is obviously specific to human genetics. Okay, these are your sources of information. Okay, Scientific American, again, is a news magazine that read the study and is now publishing an article about the study. Okay, so just want to separate those two different things. This is where scientists go to share their findings. I'm going to continue on. The new study looked at mitochondrial DNA. I am not a biologist. What does that mean? What is mitochondrial DNA? Okay. Now, some of you might remember from biology, you studied mitochondria, and you might remember that was something that you did in bio. If you had Mrs. Nigerian, she might have said something like it's the powerhouse of the cell, something like that. But I'm not a biology teacher, so I don't know that for sure. You'll have to ask them. Okay. All right. And then it says, which is passed down through mothers. Through mothers. All right. And of course, for me, again, I'm not a biologist, so I'm confused. Why just mothers? Okay. All right. So, just to wrap things up here, I'm going to be done. If I wanted to ask a higher level type of question, right? Um, we could start thinking like a question like, could this happen to humans again? That's a higher level question, right? It certainly has some interesting, the answer would be very interesting to us, right? So that's a higher level question that you're thinking about there. When you talk about genetics, right? Some of you might say, hey, is this similar to what we do when we get our genetic tests, like, um, 23andMe and all those other things where you can learn about your ancestry and stuff like that. So, thank you. It's been fun, and I'm going to stop now.